Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you here for our first webinar, where we're going to be going through a 12-part series talking about hopefully some really helpful and beneficial information if you run any type of small organization, whether that's a nonprofit or maybe a small business. As a small business owner myself, I know that I've wrestled a lot with some of the challenges of just everything that it takes to wear all the different hats. We're super excited to have Shane Sokoll here with us today, who's going to be talking a little bit about some of these corporate, jargony words that we hear, get flipped around. Things like creating a vision statement and a mission statement, and using SMART goals. What does all that mean, and how do we use that in a small organization type of setting? You'll definitely want to make sure that you stick around for some of our future webinars in the next month. We're going to be talking about creating a growth plan for your organization. As I introduce Shane, he has an incredible background, and I'm just extremely humbled to have him as our first guest as part of our 12-part series. Shane spent about 15 years at Concordia University. The last 7 of his time there, he was the Chief Strategy Officer. He is a Fulbright Scholar, and about 6 years ago in 2018, Shane launched his own consulting firm with him and his wife, which is now what he does on a full-time basis. So we are so excited to welcome Shane to share some insights with us today. Hey, Shane.
Hey, Zach. Good to be here with you all.
Awesome. Well, Shane, I guess I'll kind of share from my experience, being in and around the small business, small organization world. You hear a lot of the jargon whenever it comes to crafting vision statements and mission statements and creating SMART goals and core values. And I know that I felt maybe a little bit confused at times with what it means. Whenever I talk to different people, I feel like I maybe get a little bit of a different answer in terms of, what are these things? How do we use them in an organization that doesn't have, 5,000 people or 50,000 people? So could you maybe just kind of open up the door and walk us through conceptually what are some of these different concepts, and just kind of help us conceptualize, how to think about some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear you. I feel that pain as well. When I moved into the strategy officer role that I was fortunate to serve in at the university here in Austin, in the beginning, it was like, wow, there is a lot of jargon out there in the world of strategy. And it's because, there's certain professions who have taken the time across the industry, across the profession, to come together and say, you know what, when we say this word, it's going to mean this, right? Project management. There is some there are certifications, there's an agreement about what certain words mean. Accounting and finance, same thing. So in the world of strategy, right, when you're thinking about mission and vision, values and objectives and goals and, all of this, if it feels a little bit, confusing, it is because there's not a set standard of vocabulary and the definitions. And I always reminds me of a little image you probably see on LinkedIn a lot of times, where there's one person standing on one side of the room, another person standing on the other side. One person sees a 6, another person sees the 9. They think they're talking about the same thing, but they have completely different definitions. Mm-hmm. And so let's do make a kind of level set and try to make it as simple as possible. And so when I think about mission, it's why an organization it exists. It's what they do, for whom, and what benefit do those people get from it, for the people that they're doing that. And so a mission or a purpose, it's what we do for a certain group of people, and they get a benefit from it. That's mission at the simplest level. And I've run hundreds of teams through that exercise, both for organizational mission as well as department level purpose. I like to define, again, using terms, mission and purpose go interchangeable, right? Organizational level, let's call it the mission. If we're going to create a department level mission, let's just call it purpose. It cascades up. It supports the overall organizational mission. Vision is a picture of the future. It's what we want to become. It's aspirational. It's a stretch. And in fact, it could be just this huge goal, right? Another way of talking about it, but it's at the highest level, a vision of what we want to become. And then goals, these are things you set in motion, actions, to reach your vision and live out your mission. And we can dig into a little bit in a little while here about what we mean by goals, right? And SMART goals, I would say every goal needs to be a SMART goal, but I want to talk a little bit later on, and I know we will, kind of giving some definition around what goals are, how to create them, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's really good. Thanks for sharing that, Shane. I guess, as somebody who, I tell stories for a living. It's a big part of what my job does. It might be helpful for our audience or even for me to kind of understand, have there been some experiences that you can pull from with some of your consulting clients or, some of the previous roles that you've had where maybe there was some fuzziness around clarifying, what each one of these different elements is. And I guess, how have you seen from those experiences whenever people get a little bit more clarification or focus on, what is a vision statement? What is a mission statement? What are SMART goals? How have you seen that, be helpful to helping these organizations, live out whatever their definition of success is?
Yeah. So the one word that comes to mind when we talk about this and to answer your question is alignment.
Mm-hmm.
People typically have good intentions. They're competent, or they're willing to learn to get that competence level up. They want to exert effort. They want to see personal success, team success, organizational success. Without a clear mission, what do? What is our overarching big thing that we do? If there's not that clarity of that alone, there's no alignment. We'll answer the question, but we're answering it individually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're doing that. And how do we want to do it? So, like, just as an example, if you are a company that creates software,
mm-hmm.
Okay, so we create software, and maybe there's a specific industry that you focus on, a medical science community, right? We create software for the medical science industry, but a niche within the medical science industry, which could be one that focuses on curing cancer, not just cancer, but blood cancers.
Mm-hmm.
So we create software for the medical science community,
mm-hmm.
that seeks to find a cure for blood cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's very clear. This is what we do. What's our vision? We might be really lofty in the vision, and we say a world without blood cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And we view our part of that puzzle as really contributing to that huge picture of the future. And man, you can get excited about that. That'll preach, right? Or you can, sometimes you have these corporate evangelists. I mean, you can really talk about this. And when you're onboarding people and when you're organizing, what does this fit with our mission? Does this fit with our vision? Or, that might be a little bit too high, right? I mean, that might be, a world without blood cancer. Let's dial it down just a little bit so it's a little more practical. That big overarching vision could be, we are the go-to software developer for the medical science community that is seeking a cure for blood cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you could get into intended results of what do you mean by that, the go-to software developer. It could be, we own 75% of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now you're getting even more specific.
Sure.
And so when you see, the longer you live, the more credentials you got, right? The more experience that you have. So, and I have a ton of partnerships, some that are really close and dear to me. One of them is the Strategy Management Group. It also goes by the Balanced Scorecard Institute, hundreds of clients over the years around the world. And we have experiences where when you take the time to develop and flesh out a mission, whether you're a small organization or a really large organization, you take the time to flesh that out with a collective way. Say you're a small software development company of 50 people or even 10. If you kind of take, and you don't have a real clear mission like we just described or a clear vision, if you invite people in to let's flesh this out together, then it's not just the CEO's mission or the CEO's vision or a small handful of founders. It is our mission, our vision. And then when you create those SMART goals, you create those in a collective manner again. And all of a sudden, there's buy-in, there's alignment, and we know why we're here. We're showing up. We have a rallying cry, man, a world without blood cancer. And we have our piece to the puzzle to solve that. And I'm excited about it. And so we're looking through that lens over and over again.
Yeah, that's good. So we spent some good time talking about, crafting a vision statement, crafting a mission statement. Can you talk a little bit more about SMART goals? What does that acronym SMART stand for? What does it look like to think about SMART goals in the way that I guess it interacts with the mission statement and the vision statement?
Yeah. Again, the purpose is alignment. The way you get alignment is when things are clear. Clarity, very important for what we're doing. And so when we create the SMART goals has been around a long time for those who've been in this space or are leading organizations. Why is it stuck? Because it's really practical, right? And in the world of goal setting and executing on goals that are set, there's like flavors of the month and all that. But the more specific you can get, which is the first part, right, of SMART, very specific. Measurable. How are we going to know? Okay, we're going to do this goal. How are we going to know if we're achieving it? Which the next one is achievable. And then relevant. Relevant for me, and a synonym in that is impact. Okay, so we can have very specific, very measurable, very achievable goals, meaning we want to stretch. It's like a stretch goal, right? We want to, but it has to be achievable. If I come in and we're our firm only is making $10 million a year, and a new CEO comes in, no longer the founder, they hire a CEO from the outside and say, okay, in the next 2 years, we're going from 10 million to 100 million. Like, wow, that might be a really big leap. It's not achievable, likely, right? And so, but the relevant piece is impact. Okay, we're going to do all this. We can measure it. We can achieve it. It's going to stretch us. But is it relevant? Like, who cares? It's not just create. Sometimes we feel I work with all size organizations, so it doesn't matter if you're small or big. Sometimes we just want to jump, forget the mission, forget the vision, almost like mission. Okay, yeah, we know what we're doing. Vision, I don't worry about that. We got the gut feeling what we should do, and then all of a sudden we just create this big laundry list of tasks.
Sure.
And so that's when we think about relevance. It's impact. And I want to dig into the type of goals in just a second, because I think SMART goals to me are characteristics of how you craft the goal. But I want to talk about the two goals in a second. And then time bound. That's the T, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That's what we mean by SMART goal. Is it okay if I jump into like the two types of goals though at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So when I think of goals, and sometimes, and again, you'll hear some people say objectives. It's a synonym, so don't freak out about it, right? But like, okay, let's just define what we're talking about. So goals, two types of goals: improvement goals and tactical goals. I think it's important to kind of differentiate in that realm. So we want to make improvements. And I came up with a few examples here that I put together in preparation for today. So say I have an improvement goal of increasing sales.
Mm-hmm.
To make that a SMART goal, an improvement goal to increase sales, I would write it something like increase sales, and maybe a type of sales of subscriptions. So think I have an app. There's a free version, there's a subscription version. So I'm going to increase the sales of subscriptions within Central Texas, perhaps. Probably not with an app, but it could be if you want to, or within a certain, if we wanted to go back to the example of the software developer we gave before, within this area of medical science.
Sure.
And I want to do it by 10% in Q1. Mm-hmm. And then by 5% Q2, Q3, Q4. We're going to increase. So it's, all of a sudden, it's a SMART goal, this improvement goal. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time bound. Increase sales of subscriptions by 10% in Q1. And then by 5% in Q2, and so on and so forth. Okay? So you got that. So we have this improvement goal of increasing sales. Then we made it SMART, so we know exactly, increase sales, that's fantastic, it's awesome, yeah, let's do it, rock and roll. But what exactly, how much?
Sure.
By when? And then we get to the tactical goal, which I would, sometimes the synonym would be project, initiative. So if we're going to increase sales by 10% or by 5%, whatever percent that is, right? In the next quarter, what are we going to do? That's where we usually want to start. But let's set the higher vision, giant goal, audacious. Then we're going to have a set of these improvement goals, increase sales by 10% in quarter one of subscriptions. Now what am I going to do? That's where the tactical comes in. So we're going to set some goals. For example, a tactical goal in this one might be purchase a new CRM, customer relations management software, and then train all employees in it by the end of Q1. See how that's a different kind of goal? That's a more tactical goal.
Sure.
That's the tactics that will help us move the needle on that improvement goal of increasing sales.
Sure.
Another one might be, we're going to roll out the CRM. So we purchased it. It took a while to find that, RFPs and all that. Train everybody. And then, by April 15th of quarter two, if we're using the calendar year, we're going to roll it out and we're going to start using it. Everyone's ready to go. And then, another tactic that might be along with that increasing of sales by 10% in Q1 is or Q2 in this case, I guess. It would be, hey, we're going to do an app subscription campaign and we're going to roll it out, So some real practical items there about creating SMART goals through these two lenses, the improvement goal and the tactical goal, but creating those with the SMART goal characteristics of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
Yeah, it's really good. Shane, as you were just kind of walking through everything, first and foremost, you just make it sound so easy. You're just, spitting off mission statements as if you could do it in your sleep. And for those of us who are, let's say, not wired the same way, I kind of wish I had that gifting now, because it's taken me a long time to, craft some of these statements for us personally and also inside of our business organization. And, I guess feels like it's always going through further refinement as we get more clarity. It's been my experience with a lot of, let's say, the entrepreneurs and organizational leaders that I work with, that feels like the leaders tend to fall into one of two different categories. They either tend to fall into more of a visionary type of category, or they fall into one of these implementer, types of categories. And so My question would be, is as we've, I guess, built this hierarchy, starting at the top with, our vision statement, this is our big, audacious, thing that we want to accomplish, backing into our mission statement of what is our organization about, and then talking about SMART goals. Can you kind of walk through how, if you're in a position of leadership, do you feel from your experience that leaders need to be well-rounded to be able to, let's say, develop all of this? Or are they bringing in other people on their team to be a part of helping craft some of these things? Maybe there's people who have different skill sets, some people who can look at it from a tactical standpoint, some people who can look at it from a big picture standpoint. Kind of walk me through like how does the team element, I guess, fit into that? Or is it your opinion that the CEO or the owner or the leader of the organization should be the one that's mostly responsible for this?
Oh man, Zach, you've opened a can of worms on this one, man. It all depends, the typical answer. But let me tell you, based on the science, the organizational science. So my MBA days, business administration, it's like, look, we don't got a lot of time. You got to make decisions quick when you're leading an organization or a department, right? And that's just how you do it. Then the science side goes, okay, let's look across all industries, all leaders, all types of organizations, and figure out what is the best practices. And that's what I love, kind of this combo, right? And so, yeah, I know we're wired in a certain way, but if our goal is not just living out how we're wired when we're leading an organization, but our goal is for the organization to actually be successful in the short term and the long term, then we might want to lean into best practice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So wherever you're at, whoever's listening today, either live or, some point in the future when you're watching this, that's the question I have for you as a top leader, as a C-suite leader or founder or a board member that is, really in the operations, is what's your ultimate goal? I mean, do you want this organization to go above and beyond anything, beyond yourself? Then let's lean into best practice. So best practice, let me talk about that. And then this is not just from reading. This is actually working in the trenches with leaders from across industries. And that's what I love doing, in these last 3 years, full time, and as you indicated, we started our business a while ago, but now, oh my goodness, these last going on 3 years has been a blast because this stuff is needed across industry. Small, medium, large organizations, doesn't matter what the industry is. Best practice is if you build your vision and the goals that you're going to set to achieve that vision with a team, people who represent the whole organization. Say you're too large, right? You're 200, 500. You at least have representation from across all departments. And you choose those folks, you invite them to be part of it based on their level of influence, competence, whatever. But at least I know that somebody represents kind of my part of the organization. So but say you're just 10 people, then all 10 could probably be involved, right? We're working with them, we're working with an organization right now that is about 15 people. All of them are involved in this. Worked with a large organization, they have 55,000 people under them. There were 7 people but they represented across the whole, all of those areas. And so the key component really is let's create together, because we can do more together. And the potential within the room, within the collective of these representatives is greater than the potential within any individual. And someone has to have, the final say. We understand that. And it's likely, it's the top leader, either the owner, the CEO or something. Sure. Yeah. But we did this together. And so if it was created by the CEO, it's the CEO's plan. Mm-hmm. If it's created by just the executive team, it's the executive team's plan. If it's created by a representation from across the organization, it's the organization's plan.
Yeah.
And I've just seen that over and over and over again. Yes, it takes more time to do. Collaboration in the beginning, it's almost like counterintuitive. Look, we don't got time for that, man. We're putting out fires. We're making solutions. We got, metrics to hit, sales goals to make. cost reductions to happen, restructurings to occur. But again, the question is, you want short-term or long-term success? And the answer is both, right? But if you will invest, and you have to develop that muscle, right? This muscle of inviting people in to creating the path forward. And over time, that muscle will be so strong. I was walking into, I'd been working with this organization for 7 years, and I'm walking in, and there was a board meeting, and one of the board members from the parking lot, one of the board members, we were shooting the breeze. He says, "How's it going over here? How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great. It's the strategy officer's dream come true." He's like, "What do you mean, man?" And this is like our third strategic plan. This is when I was in that chief strategy officer role. It's like this. It took 7 years to get to developing this muscle where in any operational meeting, people from all levels of the organization were referred, how does this fit into the overall strategy, right? This decision we're making right now on the ground. I mean, it was just common language. Can we point back to that one-page strategy map that we look at? Because the muscle was developed over time. In the beginning, though, man, it felt like counterintuitive. Like, do we really have time to do this? But after you develop a team, a collaborative type of approach, it's like, how do we not have time to do this? Because all the running into one another is no longer there. There's an alignment. We got each other's back. We're doing this well together.
Yeah, that's really good. I can definitely resonate with, as you were walking through in your role as the chief strategy officer and getting to that, inflection point where you realize, oh man, we're kind of doing it, I've definitely had that realization in our business as you just have so many decisions that you have to make. And, I see a lot of entrepreneurs get shiny object syndrome, which, they think, oh man, I have this new cool thing that I can go chase after. And it's been my experience that when we really refine, the vision statement, the mission statement, it allows us to have a northern star that we can point to whenever we're making decisions. It allows us to have some boundaries on, hey, is this inside of the scope of what we're trying to accomplish, or is this a deviation? Is this something that we should actually be chasing after? Because I tell my, the people that we work with all the time, you can do anything, but you can't do everything, right? You have a finite amount of resources, you have a finite amount of time. And so you have to really have focus and clarity on the direction that you're marching in. And it doesn't mean that you can't have, let's say, you can't be open to opportunities at the margin, from my experience, but I think it means you need to be really selective with what types of opportunities you're inviting in. And, to get down to the tactical level, when you start delegating some of these responsibilities out to your team, the more that you put on their plate, the more that they're going to be stretched thin. And so you just have to, at least as a leader in my organization and working with a lot of other leaders in different organizations, I find that the organizations that are having the most amount of success are the ones that are most in alignment with what they're hoping to accomplish. They're most in touch with, here's the vision of where we're going. Here's the mission of who we are. And it allows them to say, hey, we would love to be able to go fix this problem over here, but that doesn't really feel like who we are today, or what we're about. And so we really just need to, stay in our lane.
Oh man, yeah. There's so many good things we could do. So many fun things we could do. We might be passionate about certain things, and that's why we're doing them sometimes when there's a certain leader. They just love that stuff. But again, if you create the filter, right? The mission, the vision, the goals, then you can use that as that filter. And good point, Zach. You can do anything, but you can't do everything, right? So another thing right along with that, another phrase I love is you got to stop doing, just start doing.
Sure.
Don't just keep adding. Before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've spent a fair amount of time kind of talking about vision, mission, SMART goals at a conceptual level. Can you kind of walk us through, let's say, for example, we've got a small business owner that's, listening to this, and they're asking, themselves the question, hey, I'm not resourced like a 500 person organization, or don't even get started with crafting and thinking about some of these things, or maybe I have, this vision statement or this mission statement in my head, but I've never gone through the exercise of actually mapping it out and putting it down on paper and then thinking about sharing it with my team. So what would you say is like a good starting point in the journey for people, if they're starting to think about taking next steps, if they're seeing the value in what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So mission does not have to be complicated. There are 3 questions. What do we do? Make a big list of that. And then continue to kind of think it through, cluster it, put it together. What do we do? For whom? You're going to have a big list of clients and stakeholders. And then rank them. And so actually this type of client is 70% of our actual business. Well, they're the top. They're the primary customer.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the secondary. 15%. Then we have this big long list. Okay, then all of a sudden we shouldn't be spending so much time on the all those other people, because we have limited resources, right? So what do we do? Funnel that down. For whom? And what benefit are those people getting? What those primary, secondary customers, what benefit are they getting from us? It doesn't have to take that long.
Mm-hmm.
Just carve some time out. What do we do? For whom? What benefit do they get from it? That's it. Then you're answering the question, why we exist, right? In the market, in the world. Vision, you're thinking about the picture in the future. I like to say 10 years. Mission is kind of like it remains for a long time, typically.
Yeah, sure.
Vision, a little bit shorter, but it should be pretty, big. I mean, it depends on the industry, how fast it's moving, but it could be a 5-year vision. It could be, I think, a 10-year vision, so that it's audacious enough.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you want to think about a picture of the future. What are customers saying about us? How are employees feeling? How are they behaving? What are the key achievements we're having? And then you come up with, it's some kind of statement, that's inspiring, that's measurable, it's a stretch, yet achievable. So again, I'll just repeat though. What are customers saying about us? What are employees feeling, and how are they behaving? What are some of these key achievements? And this is 10 years out, right? And then you're going to craft some kind of statement that's from that, so that you can point people back to it. I came up with another example here in prep for today. Say I had a store. I'm going from the East Coast. I want to move to the West Coast, expand there. And this is maybe probably a larger group, right? So, we're going to have 230 stores by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right? Like, what a vision. It's very clear. Measurable, time, oriented.
That's good.
And then, so I think those 2 things are really key. If you set those up, mission, vision, and then the goals, again, go back to what are the improvements, come up with a short list. Just set, if you're a small organization, set 3 to 5. But come with a big brainstorm of it, right? You could do it individually to start, but again, build it with some key people, if possible, and general improvements, but then get to the tactics, which are those projects you're going to do to move the needle on. I'm going to increase sales. I'm going to decrease cost. I'm going to increase employee retention. I'm going to, increase repeat customers. Those are kind of those improvements. You're going to make them in the SMART characteristics, and then you're going to set up those projects, those tactics that you're going to do. Take a step, and I think you had asked this a few minutes ago as well. When you're doing this in-house, yes, you can do it in-house, but you will hear people who have done this. It's really valuable to bring someone from the outside as the facilitator when you're building it within a group, so that the leader or leaders can participate fully and not worry about the facilitation and just be one of the contributors instead of the facilitator. Really, really important. And again, a best practice.
Yeah, that's great. Let's fast forward a little bit with the next couple of minutes that we have, and as I wrap up with this last segment, we're going to spend a little bit of time to just kind of open up for questions and answers. So if anybody is listening to this live, feel free to put into the comments on LinkedIn what questions that you have. We can go through and make sure that we spend a little bit of time answering those. Shane, as we think about conceptually, here's the value of a vision statement, mission statement, SMART goals. We've talked a little bit about taking some next steps in terms of crafting them. Walk us through a little bit about how do you see maximizing the implementation once these tools are available? What does it look like to come back to these on a regular basis and making sure that the team continues to be in alignment with the vision and with the mission of the organization?
Yeah. So we don't want the proverbial strategic plan hidden in the hard drive or on the dusty shelf, right? And so, you have to start with the end in mind, as the great quote Stephen Covey for many years has been used. And so it's not about creating a plan, it's about executing it. And it's not just about executing it, it's actually getting the impact of executing it, right? Those goals being achieved that have those set improvements and achievements that you want. And so you got to think with that end in mind. Okay, so if we're going to execute this, that's why another reason why you build it with representation from across the organization, because they're the ones that are going to actually execute it. Because we know micromanagement in the big, club doesn't work in today's world.
Sure.
And so that's why you build it collectively, right? And as you're developing the muscle, so again, going back to that prioritization, simple is better. Less is more. That's why you got to go through the prioritization, because all of a sudden you get all excited. Oh my goodness, we're planning now. We're actually thinking about the future instead of just running around putting out fires. People get really excited about this stuff. But then you want to, build Rome in a day, and we know it can't be built in a day. So you got to prioritize, make it simple. Simple is more effective for long-term execution and success. And so narrow down those goals. Who's going to own them? You got to have an owner. Don't put it to a department. Don't put it to owners. One owner. Yeah, they can have a bunch of sub-owners, whole groups that are rallying behind it. As you're developing the muscle, this is something new, you're developing the muscle, I always say actually monthly check-ins. Some people, right, that are talking, if you say, we don't have the systems in place to be able to report it all, okay, I get it. Start wherever you're at. What's the one biggest step forward in this objective? And how can we help you? 2 simple questions. One big, and then over time, just how can we help you? We can see the reporting. You got a reporting system in place. We can see the advances, but how can we help? Meaning other people in the room, or in the in the organization. But over time, quarterly reviews are really effective once that muscle's been developed. If you start though with just quarterly reviews, my experience has been, if it's a newer, you really don't have a living, active kind of set of goals going after this vision and living out this mission, then 3 months, man, it'll be so lost. So I think even simple monthly check-in, and then the quarterly, and then regular cadence, and then a yearly published, some kind of roll up on a yearly basis that is like the State of the Union, the state of the business kind of expressions. And you could do that in so many fun, creative ways. It becomes a really fun thing of how you celebrate successes. So you got to celebrate those on and on. That's a big part of execution. So much to say on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing all that, Shane. We'll transition over to Q&A. We probably have time for 1 or 2 questions before we wrap things up. We've got a question just came in from Chris Fisher. Chris is asking, Shane, if you can share how organizations can filter all their strategic decisions through their stated values, and how have you seen organizations be able to do this successfully and sustainably? Wow, well, that's a great question. We could probably just carve out a whole another 30 minutes answering that one question.
Yeah, quickly answer just the values, because that was I think 3 questions embedded in there. So the values piece is, well, if it goes against the values, right? Like for example, if we're trying to, free the world of cancer, well, we're not going to promote certain types of behaviors, right, within our organization that would actually be a cause of cancer, right? Say we're yeah. Anyway, it's simple. It's like we're not going to be, promoting smoking for whatever reason. I mean, in the U.S., we're not doing that much anymore, but it's surprising in certain parts of the world we are. Okay, let me move fast beyond that, though, because the values piece, basically, if any initiative comes out or project that goes against the values or some objective, increase sales, but we're not going to do it at the expense of the customer, right? We might customer first, ethical behavior always. Well, we're not going to be telling people if we're a mechanic, they need new brakes if they really don't. Yeah, our sales went up, but ultimately we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So again, how do we? The second part of that was, how do we make this, ongoing, sustainable, and living, basically. Build it together. What you pay attention to is what gets attention. So you're measuring it, you're paying attention to it, it's going to stay alive. But really, you got to, going back, vision is absolutely key, and especially from the top leader. You got to continue to communicate around the why. Why are we doing this? Start with the why. Vision is a big piece. And you continue to pay attention to all the, on the ground level, in the weeds stuff that actually is rolling up across, the mid-level objectives of improvement. Ultimately, though, why are we spending so much time and energy on this? It's because we want this. This is where we're heading, right? And so storytelling, like you said, Zach, such a key ingredient to keeping it alive.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Shane, as we close up, I know that you've been gracious to share a couple of resources. So I'm going to put these up on screen for anybody who's interested. Shane, could you maybe just walk through what each one of these different QR codes is, and then just share a little bit about, if people have additional questions, they're thinking through, hey, this is some really good information. I'm thinking about taking some next steps. What does it look like for them to get in touch with you and your team, and maybe start talking about implementing some of these things for their organizations?
Absolutely. So famous quote, Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so I actually believe it's not commonly done, but you got to think about both things: team culture, organizational culture, because is resident within people, how we behave, what are the expectations of how we interact and work together. And if it's a cutthroat, toxic culture, you might have the most amazing strategy, amazing set of goals, and your vision's phenomenal, your mission's great, but if you can't work together to get that done, it doesn't matter. And so doing both together is important. And so we actually have this culture assessment. It's actually from your vantage point, just very quickly. It's online, it's web-based. You go on that QR code, you can take that, it's asking you about your organization, and boom, you will get the results. It'll come back in a very cool chart that shows you, oh, this is where I think basically areas that are strong, areas that we need to continue, and then areas we got to improve in. So gaps. On the strategy one, strategy health. So we've talked about mission, vision, and objectives today. And so it's a downloadable, it's the worksheet. Basically, you're going to be able to evaluate how strong, how healthy these strategy things are in your organization, which then gives you the starting point of taking action, right? How clear are our goals, so on and so forth. And as you look through that, you rank them, you come up with, this is how healthy we are, and this is where we're going to continue to focus, and where we're going to actually give some extra focus because we're not so good in that area. Mm-hmm. But then that third one is a talk. If you just want to talk about it, I mean, we're going to dedicate 20, or anyone viewing this or participating today, you want to spend 20 minutes talking about anything we've talked about today, or debriefing the results in your strategy worksheet or in your culture assessment, happy to do that. Would be fantastic and fun to spend some time with you and just brainstorm together so you can come up with an action plan. And so that takes you, on the talk one, it takes you directly to my calendar so you can schedule something that fits your schedule. And so that's it. That's what that's all about. Love to talk more on this.
That's great, Shane. Well, thanks for sharing so much insight and wisdom today. Thank you for access to the resources. Everyone, please make sure that you're taking advantage of those. As we just kind of wrap things up, just want to remind everybody that we're going to be doing our next webinar talking about creating a growth plan for your organization, which is kind of a now that we've talked about crafting a vision statement and crafting a mission statement and creating SMART goals, what does it look like for you to start thinking about implementing some of these goals into your plan to be able to accomplish whatever your definition of success is. So thanks to everyone for joining us live or watching this on record. Thank you, Shane, once again for just being a part of the conversation, and really enjoyed getting to spend the time with you today.
What a blast. Thank you, Zach.